The summer air smelled like grilled corn and burnt egos. It was the annual family barbecue, a tradition as old as the judgment that came with it. I had barely stepped out of my car when I saw them, my parents standing proudly near the grill, surrounded by the same group of relatives who always found new ways to ask the same tired question. When are you finally going to get married? It was as if my worth had an expiration date and my single status was an embarrassment. They had to explain away. I was 31, single, successful, and apparently still useless in their eyes. My mother glanced at me with that familiar disappointed look, like I'd shown up wearing shame instead of lipstick. You could have at least worn something flattering. You'll never find someone looking like that. She muttered loud enough for my cousin and her new fiancé to hear. I smiled tight-lipped. Biting back the 1,000 replies, I wanted to scream. I found a quiet corner near the drinks table, sipping lemonade and avoiding the questions that buzzed like mosquitoes. Still working that writing thing. You don't want kids at all. Your sister's baby is due in September. You must feel so behind. Behind what? A checklist they built for themselves before they ever asked what made me happy. Then it came, the moment that shattered even a thin veil of civility we were all pretending to wear. Why are you even here? My dad asked, wiping grease from his hands. Seriously, still unmarried and just wasting space. You show up every year with nothing to show. You don't bring a husband, a child. Hell, not even a plus one. He laughed, the kind of laugh that twists in your stomach. Useless. The word landed like a slap. I stood there frozen, my lemonade glass trembling in my hand. The chatter dimmed. No one said a word. My uncle looked down at his shoes. My aunt cleared her throat and refilled her wine. And just like that, my father turned his back on me and returned to flipping burgers. I think you should leave, my mother added, brushing a crumb off the table as if dismissing a fly. That was it. No screaming. No dramatic tears. I walked back to my car in silence. My cousin tried to offer a half-hearted sorry about that, but I didn't stop walking. That night, I curled up on my couch and let it all out. The years of being the not enough daughter. The years of being compared to my younger sister who married rich and popped out twins. The years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. I had worked my way through school, published 3 bestsellers, and owned my own home. But to them, I was still nothing without a man, a wedding ring, a womb at work. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't alone. I had met someone quietly, intentionally, a man who didn't need to parade me around like a trophy, a man who didn't care for family approval or performative affection, a man who respected the parts of me my family had always wanted to mute. He wasn't just kind, he was brilliant, a tech entrepreneur who valued privacy, integrity, and honesty. We had kept our relationship out of the public eye because I'd had enough of other people's opinions. That night, as I lay there with mascara-stained cheeks, my phone buzzed. A message from him. I hate seeing you hurt. Want to fly out for the weekend? My jet's already prepped. I smiled for the first time that day. They wanted me gone. Fine. But next time I'd show up, it would be on my terms, with the one thing they said I'd never have. Wait until you see what happens next. The jet ride to Napa Valley was quiet, smooth, and symbolic. It wasn't just about escaping anymore. It was about reclaiming something. I sat in the leather seat across from him, my hand wrapped in his, still shaky from everything that had happened. His name was Julian, a man who didn't just listen. He understood. When I told him what my father had said, what my mother echoed, he didn't try to fix it or downplay it. He just said, then it's time to let them see who you really are, not who they decided you were. For 3 days, I stayed at Julian's private estate, tucked in a valley surrounded by vineyards. It felt like breathing after being underwater for years. I worked quietly from a sun-drenched study, submitted a final manuscript to my publisher, and received confirmation that my 3rd book had just hit the bestseller list. I didn't tell anyone, especially not my family. They wouldn't have cared anyway. Or so I thought. That's when Julian leaned forward over dinner one evening and asked the question that would change everything. Why do you keep hiding me from them? I paused. I didn't have a good answer. Maybe part of me thought they didn't deserve to know about him. Or maybe I still hadn't let go of the child inside me, hoping they'd be proud of me before I showed them everything I built without their help. Then he smirked and said, "What if we gave them a little show? A show, a proper reunion, with a toast?" I blinked. "You mean go back, not as who you were, as who you are, and let me come as who I am." Julian had money, a lot of it, but it wasn't the wealth that made the idea powerful. It was the fact that for the first time in my life, someone wanted to stand beside me, not in front of me, not above me, but with me. We planned it carefully. I didn't want revenge, not the petty kind. I didn't want yelling or chaos. I wanted silence, the kind that falls over a room when people realize they were wrong all along. The next week, I got a message in the family group chat I had muted years ago. It was from my sister announcing that she and her husband were hosting a grand follow-up BBQ to celebrate her pregnancy. "Everyone's welcome," she wrote, followed by a passive-aggressive, "Yes, even you if you're done figuring life out." Julian laughed when I showed him. Perfect. We arrived in style, not to be flashy, but to be seen. Julian's driver dropped us off in a sleek black car that hummed like quiet power. One wore a white jumpsuit with gold accents, minimal jewelry, and confidence I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. Still believing my voice mattered at that patio table. My sister's backyard was full of people. Same judgmental relatives, same forced smiles, same fake hugs. My father froze when he saw me. His eyes darted behind me to Julian, who extended a calm hand and said, "Good to meet you, sir. I've heard so much about you." My father didn't shake it. My mother gave a half-hearted side kiss that didn't touch my skin. "Oh, you brought a friend," she said. "Fiancé, actually." I smiled. A wave of silence passed through the crowd. A few glasses paused. Mid-air, Julian reached for the bottle of wine he had brought, one of his own from the vineyard, and poured to glasses. "To family," he said with a sharp smile, raising his glass. "And to those we built, when the ones we were born into fall apart," I added, "and to never letting someone else decide your worth, especially over burgers and bad attitudes." They laughed nervously. My uncle looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. My sister glared, her perfect party clearly overshadowed. My mother went pale. And my father, he didn't say a word until dinner. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an amber glow over the patio as everyone gathered around the long wooden dinner table. It was the same table I used to help set as a kid, the one where I was often told to sit at the far end or worse, serve plates to others before I could eat. But this time, I wasn't invisible. People watched me now. They whispered. They did double takes. I had arrived not as the broken daughter they used to dismiss, but as a woman who no longer needed their permission to shine. Julian took his seat beside me. I could feel the quiet tension building, like thunder rumbling far off, but growing closer with every tick of the second hand. Across from me, my sister looked ready to explode. Her party, her pregnancy announcement, her moment ruined. But what did she expect? You do build a throne out of someone else's humiliation and expect them to stay kneeling forever. My father raised his beer can. A toast. He slurred, trying to reclaim authority in a space that no longer obeyed him. To family, to success. To those who finally figured it out eventually. Laughter, shallow, disingenuous. I didn't smile. Then he added almost as an afterthought. And to our daughter. She might be late to life, but hey, at least she brought someone who looks like he pays his taxes. A few people chuckled. Julian didn't. Neither did I. I stood slowly, glass in hand. "If we're toasting," I said, "then let's toast properly." The table quieted. To the girl who used to sleep in the garage because her brother needed peace. To the daughter who was asked if she'd ever be useful just because she hadn't gotten married. To the woman who was mocked at this very table until she built a name big enough that you had to Google it just to feel included. I looked directly at my father. To the man who called me still unmarried and useless. This is my billionaire fiancé. Gasps, audible ones. Julian stood beside me, wrapping a calm, grounding arm around my back. To the family who kicked her out for being unmarried, he said gently, "Thank you." Because without that push, she wouldn't have met me. She wouldn't have started the company she now owns, and she wouldn't have bought this house. Silence. My mother's hand went slack around her fork. "Excuse me," my sister whispered. Julian pulled a crisp official document from his coat. The house was foreclosed 3 months ago, bought under a holding company. Guess who that holding company belongs to? I watched their mouths open slowly, disbelievingly. I leaned forward and said, "I gave you 30 days to move." The notice was served to the landlord, but I figured I'd let you have one last barbecue. "You're welcome." "You're joking," my father muttered, standing up. "You made me sleep in the garage," I said, voice calm and lethal. "You humiliated me at a family BBQ. You threw me out like trash in front of relatives who still call me a waste. You don't get to act surprised that I stopped playing nice." My sister stood too, voice rising. "This was supposed to be my day." "No," I said, walking to the head of the table. "This was supposed to be the day you looked at me the same way you always have, like I was a nobody. But here's the thing. Nobodies don't buy houses out from under you." I turned to the rest of the family. "I gave you years of silence, years of space. I kept hoping someone would reach out, apologize, even acknowledge what was done. But none of you did. So I stopped waiting. I started building. And I'll never be the girl crying behind a backyard shed again." Julian placed the wine bottle gently on the table with our last names etched onto the label. The toast had been made. The truth had been spoken. The house had been reclaimed. As we turned to leave, I could feel every set of eyes locked on me. This time, not with mockery or pity, but awe, regret, fear, and somewhere in there, respect. Not that I needed it. I had already given myself something better, freedom. As the car pulled away and the sun finally set behind the hill, Julian squeezed my hand and whispered, "Now they know who you are." I smiled, but didn't look back. They remember me just fine.